Not only are we going to be talking about this hidden gem of a $66 graphics card, but I also built an ultra budget gaming PC to go along with it. This SJS RX 580 8GB graphics card is readily available on AliExpress right now for even cheaper than what I paid for it, and because this is a white GPU, I think this has some monster value for budget PC building and especially PC flipping. We're going to compare it with a quote-unquote normal MSI RX 580 to verify the numbers a bit. We'll of course talk about this PC build, which only costs $435 total, and all of that happens after a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by GVG Mall, and you probably already know that I've been using them for so long to activate Windows on a ton of my own builds. They're actually running a huge sale right now, which boosts my normal 18% discount up to 25% off if you use code ZTT18, and I'll have that linked at the top of the description. They not only have Windows keys, but also a ton of other stuff such as Office, and even game keys for platforms like Steam, Origin, and Uplay, and they even have console stuff too, like PSN and Xbox prepaid cards as well. Activating Windows is super simple and only takes like 3 minutes total, so activate Windows today and remove that nasty watermark, and don't forget to use ZTT18 for 25% off. So I'll have this AliExpress posting listed down in the description, but shout out to PC Lab LLC from Jawa for showing me the light with this gem. He's a seller on Jawa, by the way, that pretty much builds PCs aesthetically the same way I do. Check him out if you're interested in that. But yeah, so the brand here is called SJS, and they actually sell a ton of different GPU models, but we're looking at this 8GB RX 580 because I think it's screaming value here for the price. As you can see, this is an absolutely beautiful all white dual fan design, and it even has a super clean backplate for the extra aesthetics. I love how even the heat pipes and the heatsink blades are all painted white as well. This looks super clean inside budget builds. I've told you guys this so many times already, but putting together a low budget all white system actually makes the build look more expensive than what it is, so it allows you to upcharge just a bit higher than normal and turn an even higher profit. Going back to PC Lab LLC, here you can see what I'm talking about with his Alaska build that sold for $700 on Jawa recently. The GPU is a very similar all-white card and everything else inside the build is all white, but that's only a Vega 56 in there, but it's the color scheme and design that allowed him to sell it for $700. The Vega 56 definitely can still kick it in 2023, by the way. We might need to make a video on that one later. Going back to this AliExpress posting, you can see that out of 337 customer reviews, it's averaging a 4.6 star rating, with most of them being 5 stars, and almost everyone is happy with this thing to give you some peace of mind. They also have a 75-day buyer protection, as you can see here under the free shipping information. And speaking of which, let's talk about that for a second. Now, it obviously depends on where you live around the world, but I've been personally buying PC components from AliExpress for years now, and it's only ever taken about 2 to 3 weeks on average for shipping. And the best part is, it's always free, at least for me. Now, I always hear in the comment section that people from other countries have to pay extra for AliExpress shipping, so definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. But I personally don't think I've ever spent $1 on shipping from this website, and I've never had any issues with it whatsoever. Now, the other potential downfall of this card is what you're probably already thinking. Is this actually an RX 580 chip inside of it? Is it brand new or is it used? And all of that are definitely valid questions. It's actually really difficult to answer those questions though, because I don't have adequate testing practices here in the ZTT HQ, and honestly, I don't really care. But as we know, there's a very real chance that there's a used GPU chip inside of here and everything around it is brand new. They advertise this card as being new, so I know that could throw off a lot of people ethically, but there's a chance that they took these dies from previously mined-on graphics cards and put them in here. But again, I don't have the means to test this out myself. Now, what I can test myself is how well this card compares to a more legit MSI RX 580, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. This here is just an MSI Armor card, but one thing to note is that this is only a 4GB card, and that's unfortunately all we had in the studio at the time of our testing. There's usually a small difference in performance going from the 4GB RX 580 to the 8GB card, but we're gonna touch on this fact a little bit later after we see the numbers. And we'll talk about the completed build that we're testing with after the benchmarks, but just know that inside we have a Ryzen 5 5500 and 16GB of DDR4 clocked at 3200 MHz. These won't give us a completely unhinged GPU result, but this is the level of hardware that I recommend with a budget GPU setup, so it makes the most sense to me. Starting with Apex Legends, here we put the settings at 1080p high, and here are the results. As you can see, the 8GB AliExpress model got just 2 FPS higher than the MSI model, but that's certainly within margin of error, especially here at ZTT. Next up, we tested GTA 5, which includes more of the CPU into the equation, but here the results flip-flopped a bit as the MSI card got a few FPS higher, but again, very similar results. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was up next, and using 1080p minimum settings but with 100% resolution scale, the SJS model got 6 FPS higher than the MSI. And here's Fortnite, which we of course tested in 1080p and Pro settings, and here the AliExpress card got significantly higher than the MSI card, but as we always mention, Fortnite is really tough to benchmark accurately, so take that big increase with a grain of salt. After that, we tested 3D Mark's Time Spy, and here's where things does get interesting. The SJS 8GB RX 580 scored a total system score of 3,978, while the kinda more legit MSI card got 10% higher with a score of 4,392. So as you can see, these cards are trading blows with each other, and that would not be the case if this was an MSI 8GB and this was an MSI 4GB. So clearly what these results are telling me is that this is a slightly trimmed down RX 580. Here's some more benchmarks which proves this even more. In most of these titles, it's the MSI 4GB card that produces the slightly better numbers. The only one that's drastically different is Halo Infinite, and that you can probably attribute to the heavy VRAM requirement of that game, because we know that one will certainly take advantage of those extra 4GB. Now, if we do some more digging, it's even advertised on the AliExpress page that this is an RX 580 8GB with 2048 shading cores. That's actually not the original RX 580 specs, and this is indeed a slightly trimmed down RX 580 even on paper. I think what most people compare this type of card to is an RX 570 but with slightly faster cores, so either way, it's in between the performance of an RX 570 and an original RX 580. Basically, it has RX 580 4GB performance, but with the extra benefit of the 4GB of VRAM. Hopefully that all made sense. Feel free to rewind that part a few times just to fully grasp what I'm saying, but either way, I'm ready to make a conclusion on this card. If you're looking for an ultra budget, less than $60 or $70 GPU, and you don't want to take a gamble on the used GPU market, then this is a great option for you. If you also value the all-white aesthetics because you're trying to build a system like this, even better. And speaking of which, let's quickly rattle off these parts real quickly, and I'll mention where I got them and how much I paid for everything. Again, the entire system with the GPU priced at $66 only cost me $435 total, and we will be selling this build for like $350 over on zttbuilds.com for our next monthly drop on August 1st. If you can't wait for that, we do have our restock builds always available every day of the week, and those just got some performance uplifts without increasing the prices at all. Link down in the description per usual. But yeah, starting with the CPU, which I already briefly touched on, this is a Ryzen 5 5500, which I paid $85 for brand new. Everything inside this build other than the GPU is brand new, by the way, which is pretty crazy for the total build price. Next up, we have the Gigabyte B450M DS3H Wi-Fi, which, as you know if you've been watching all my videos, it sits on Newegg every day of the week for $85. I buy this board all the time. For RAM, we have the Timetech Conduit White 2x8GB kit that's clocked at 3200 megahertz, and I paid $36 for this on Newegg. After that, we have just another Team MP33 512GB NVMe SSD. These have been going down in price to $22 more consistently, which you love to see. Powering all of that is the Apevia Prestige 600 watt. This is actually a Tier C 80 plus gold certified unit that's been sitting on Amazon lately for $52. Pretty solid budget deal. And I'm sure by now you've already seen the white Horse cable extensions that we got plugged into it. And finally, the case that everything is housed inside of is the Sama AM07, and I'm not too happy with this selection. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but here's the Newegg listing, and this was recently on sale down to $70. I honestly thought this was going to be a steal and a half with the all-white micro ATX design and 4 pre-installed RGB fans, but as you can see from our build, we don't have those RGB fans. These are just 2 black Antec fans that we had laying around in the inventory room, so our case here came with 0 fans, so we kind of got scammed over here. I've purchased Sama cases before and I haven't had any issues, but this is absolutely not at all what we paid for this time, and it's why our build kind of looks a little sad today. Don't worry though, before we put this build up for sale on zttbuilds.com on August 1st, I'll have Sam install some white RGB fans in here. I just can't possibly sell this type of build on the website with it looking like this. Either way though, here's what the full parts list is looking like, and it's still got the job done for our GPU testing, and if you are trying to copy something like this at home, I recommend just swapping out the case selection, obviously. And also let me know if you have any additional thoughts on this graphics card, or if there's a different model that you want to see me test next. And if you're looking to spend just a bit more money on a higher quality GPU option, then feel free to click the video that's on the screen now.